Hello, this is not John T. Rhapsodies, purveyor of awesome, old-school audio stories. Mr. Rhapsodies has asked me to read his own original stories, all in the old-school style. And so, let us together hear the words of old. In a deep hollow, beneath a trio of tall and thick black oaks, there stood a humble cabin, wrought from the very timberland that not long ago surrounded it, but was now a small field used for corn and beans, and whatever else could be grown for subsistence, and a few coins from town now and again. It was here that Samuel and Rachel had made their home together for several years, raising their children and crops in the quiet faith of their forebears. The early spring day had been peaceful and pleasant, but unseasonably cold. Foreboding rumbles stirred within the wind as the night settled upon the land like black smoke, cloaking the gathering of the storm clouds. The wind rose and fell like a restless spirit as the air thickened and promised something fierce and full. Suddenly, the heavens were torn asunder like an over-ripened wineskin, spilling all manner of rain and gusts upon the earth. Samuel stood sentinel by the window, hearing and feeling the storm, his eyes attempting to pierce the darkness, but to no avail. The children played at the hearth before a crackling fire. David mimicked a dreadful battle with a few toy soldiers father had carved from oak sticks. Hannah carried on a secret conversation with her baby doll her mother had fashioned from an old flour sack, buttons from her wedding dress, and other this and that. At each deep rumble of thunder, David and Hannah darted their eyes to discern the level of danger by the faces and actions of their parents. From their limited experience upon the earth, they thought of storms as something to be braved rather than something that could undo the very world they had come to believe they knew. "It's going to be a big one," Rachel said, but her voice was quiet and steady so as to not alarm the children. "Seems likely," Samuel said calmly, he too trying not to scare the children. Rachel observed Samuel put on his rain slicker and his hand upon the door latch. "Where are you going?" Rachel asked softly. "I need to go to the barn to tend to the animals," he said. "I'll be back right quick." "Be careful," Rachel said, wanting to say more as she smiled in response to Hannah's glance. Samuel and Rachel both knew this storm had a different character, though they could not yet name it. There was a reckoning in it. The heavy oaken door creaked open, and the howling wind unswept what Rachel had swept a few hours before. She watched her husband disappear into the rainy darkness, her heart uneasy but cautiously resolute. The wind-blown rain did not tarry in drenching his face. Samuel pulled down his broad-brimmed hat even lower and pulled his collar tighter. The heavy wet wind assaulted everything. Trees young and old swayed and whispered about loudly. Even the timbers of the cabin, barn, and small smokehouse creaked and groaned despite the human-wrought nails and other fixtures. The livestock voiced their fears of the storm which, from the sound of them, were much stronger than his. Samuel's small lantern lit the path to the barn very dimly. He was guided mostly by instinct and habit as he trudged toward the barn. He quietly prayed for God's protection of his family and their small farm, as well as for his neighbors. Meanwhile, for Rachel, the weight of it all became heavier as the storm grew stronger. She felt this storm was more than something they merely had to endure. It felt like a test, somehow, one that might demand more than mere endurance. As the wind rattled the window panes inside the cabin, Rachel grabbed their worn family Bible from the table and knelt down by her children as they were looking to her more and to their toys less. The firelight wavered from the wind and cast long shadows on the walls. "Listen," Rachel said softly. "Stay close to me for a little while. This storm's a little stronger than usual, but don't worry. The Lord is with us, like he said so right here in the Bible. Pray to him. Talk to him like you do your doll, Hannah." "Mama, will the storms come inside?" Hannah asked. No, Rachel said with conviction, though her voice betrayed a small tremor of unease. It won't come inside as long as we keep praying and sticking together. David and Hannah settled down beside their mother, their little hearts frightened by the howls of the storm outside as Rachel began praying softly aloud. Lord, please bless and keep us and the animals. Give us courage too. The storm grew worse, and Samuel had been gone longer than expected. The wind gusts seemed to bend and twist everything. It was as if the storm were trying to tear the world apart. Lightning flashed inside and outside, paining their eyes. They all remained in front of the still roaring fire, clinging tighter at every peal of thunder and flash of lightning. Suddenly, the door swung open, sending a rush of cold wind inside, bringing wet leaves along with it. Rachel sighed with relief that Samuel had made it back. She stood up and walked to help him with his rain slicker, but then stopped in her tracks. It wasn't Samuel who had stepped through the door. It was another man draped in a thick cloak and a wide hat, both dark and drenched and dripping. His face was shrouded in shadow. Rachel instinctively ran back to her children to protect them. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice quivering. The man removed his hat, revealing a weathered face with a dark, tangled beard and dark eyes. He brushed the mud off his boots with the boot brush next to the door. Though he was an exceedingly large and tall man, his expression was one of calm resolve on a face that looked like it knew adversity. His eyes communicated gentleness, but also strength under control. "I'm just a traveler passing through," he said in a soothing voice. "I was walking down the road over yonder, but got caught in this storm. I saw the light from your windows and hoped I could trouble you for some shelter." The children stared at the man, wide-eyed and smiling. They approached him, giggling as if they knew him. "Children," Rachel said, "don't go bothering the man." "Oh, it's no bother at all," the man said calmly as he reached inside his pocket and drew out 2 pieces of peppermint. The children smiled and David asked, "Can we have it, Mama?" Normally Rachel would be skeptical of such a gesture from a stranger, but she was not, and so gave them a nod of permission. As the man seated himself near the fire and raised his hands for warmth, thunder clapped the air again, and seemingly endless sheets of rain fell one atop the other upon the cabin roof and walls. The man did not seem bothered about the storm. He stared into the fire and smiled slightly, as though he had been there for hours rather than minutes. "You have a lovely home," the traveler said. "Thank you," Rachel said. "We're waiting for my husband to get back from the barn." "He'll be along directly," the traveler said. And at those words, the heavy oaken door creaked open again, this time leaving way for Samuel to come inside. He was soaked and dripping in the same manner as the traveler had been. After smiling at Rachel, grateful of being out of the storm, his face turned back to the door to hang up his rain slicker and hat when he noticed a strange cloak and hat hanging already there. He turned around and looked toward the fire. His visage turned grim as he noticed the traveler sitting in his chair. At that very moment, the stranger turned his eyes toward Samuel, and they exchanged long, searching gazes. "You're safe now, Samuel," the traveler said, but in a manner suggesting he was speaking to all of them. "Thank you," Samuel said quietly. "Do you know this man?" Rachel asked. Samuel turned his glance to Rachel, his eyes filled with a peculiar mix of awe and understanding. He said, "I think I do." But Samuel paused, as if searching for the right words. The traveler spoke instead. "Let's just say I was sent to check the storm." Rachel's brow furrowed from confusion at the traveler's words. The storm had been so violent, but now she realized that everything was calm now. "And did you?" she asked the traveler. The traveler smiled again, as they all realized for the first time that night that things seemed safe and right. "I did," the man said, But storms are not always just about the weather. Often they're about what happens when we don't know how much longer we can stand them. They'll also teach you whether you have a firm rock foundation and whether you don't. He glanced at the worn book in Rachel's hand and smiled. Rachel looked around the cabin, at her children David and Hannah, and then at her husband Samuel. They were all safe. The storm had been fierce and foul. They had faced it, and they had prayed and trusted God to see them through. The traveler stood to leave. He grabbed his cloak and returned his hat to his head. "I've got to get going," he said. "There are others. Take care of your family, Samuel and Rachel. And remember, faith isn't always merely a shelter from a storm. Sometimes it's the strength to face and endure it."